Buyers don't want your shit. There's a saying, it's marry the house and date the rate.
So I went through and down the hall and into the bathroom. And when I opened the bathroom door, it was very clear to me that the realtor or someone, I assume the realtor because they were there after the clients left, had used the bathroom in a way that would be indicative of taking your time, maybe reading the newspaper. So you don't buy a camper in the middle of buying a house.
All right. It's Monday morning.
Monday.
It's your favorite day, and we are technically unemployed.
Welcome. Hello, Chelsea. We are technically unemployed. Well, first of all, let's welcome our guest. Our first guest to Under Contract Taking Backup. Welcome. You are our backup today.
Thank you.
Thanks for being our backup.
Glad to be here.
Pat Masters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. AKA. The
Sign guy.
Sign guy. Hey, guy.
Grunt style.
Oh, yes. Grunt style.
What, wait?
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Hey, guy.
Hey, guy.
Blackbird.
Yeah, Blackbird. Yeah.
The MVP behind the scenes. So, Pat, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me to the podcast. It was great to be able to come in and kind of give my opinions on, what it's like to be on both sides. But myself, I'm from the area. I grew up in Lansing and Trumansburg, graduated high school here in Trumansburg, and then I went in the military and went overseas to Germany for 2 years of active duty. And then when I came back, I started looking for things to do as a career. And that's one of the things that I have so much general knowledge about life in general. We joked at the beginning about being the masters of none, jack of all trades. I delivered pizzas. I made signs. I washed cars for a while. I worked in local restaurants. I've done a lot of that different stuff. And then I got into the career in law enforcement and spent about 24 years working in jails, some with youth and some with adults. And during that whole time, I stayed in the military. And in 2004, I did my first deployment to Iraq, right after buying a house and having a kid. And then also several years later, I went back for my second tour, had my second kid, and then traveled through life with that for a long time. And then ended up divorced in 2017, sold that house, ended up in an apartment for a while. And in 2017, I came to the realization that I was just done working in the jails and wanted to do something a little bit different. And I chose something that was safer. So I came here to our village at Trumansburg and worked for the DPW, where I was subsequently electrocuted and not as safe as I thought it was going to be. So taking that experience and owning the home I have now, raising my two girls, I then went about trying to find another job. And during that time, having time off, while I was working with neurology to kind of go through the symptoms of the electrocution, Lindsay had called me and said, "Hey, I'm swamped. I've got 3 closings and two MLSs to drop and blah, 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 blah. Can you run and pick up this sign for me?" And being friends with her and her husband for the last 30 plus years, obviously I jumped in the truck and ran right over and did it, took care of it. And then it became a thing. So she said, "Geez, do you think you could do this for me? And then, maybe we'll work it into where it's for all the realtors and be the Heart and Homes team guy." And being in the line of work that I was in the military and in law enforcement, there's a lot of, there's a term called grunt. A grunt is an infantryman who is a basic level guy. And when I first joined the military, I was a grunt. So this became grunt style. My own little side hustle of helping Lindsay and some of the other realtors pick up signs, drop signs off, change riders. I've cleaned a couple of little small things up for people. There was the rat in the toilet that I took care of. So I have a lot of experiences in a lot of different things. So we joked jack of all trade masters, which is my last name, masters of none. Basically, that's where I come with all this experience and knowledge on both sides of the buying, the selling, the owning, and now being on the back side of it, where I'm actually involved in some of the deals where I'm moving signs and lock boxes and things like that. So dealing with the people. So that's kind of me in a nutshell and how I landed here today.
And I am so grateful for you.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being our very first guest.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. This is awesome. This is going to be a great.
You are kind of the all-around, what's the saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. Although, masters.
Yes.
You've had your masters
Jack
since
of all trades, masters of none. Yes. Happily being here. Thank you for the invite.
thanks for joining us. Thanks for being our biggest supporter. And yeah, you have a unique look into not only the art and home scene, but real estate
Yes.
in general. I know we've joked that you're the mogul sometimes. You've been the mogul. You haven't quite sold and bought as many houses as cars in your lifetime, but it might be a goal that you want, for yourself.
The detractor for flipping houses is the capital gains tax.
Oh, yes.
When I own a truck for 12 months and trade it in, I don't get capital gains tax. So I'm more than happy to do that. No, houses I keep longer.
See, you already know more about real estate than most people.
Some.
See, you're learning.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes.
Did you know that Pat was the first contract I put under place when I was licensed?
Yeah.
Yep. When he bought his house. Yep. He was the very first contract.
The one in the village here?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that I figured would come up in conversations today is going through the different processes that I've gone through, starting with my first house and some of those pitfalls, and then having you as a realtor for most of the stuff, but that you went and were the seller's contract or seller's realtor for Pennsylvania Avenue, that we had to have somebody else be the buyer's realtor, which was me. And that's where Chelsea came in, and that was her first contract. So it was kind of cool to go through that as well.
So before, because I was the listing agent for your house on Black Oak Road.
Correct.
What did you do? Because this was before my time. When you bought that house,
Yeah.
did you have a realtor when you bought that house, or how did that work out?
So you don't grow up with a realtor.
No.
It's something you acquire. So I started out with a gentleman by the name of Steve Segis.
Oh, okay, that's right.
And I knew him socially, as well as I played on like a rec volleyball league, and he was in it. So when it came to buy a house, I mean, back then, the name you saw around the most was Steve Segis. So obviously I went to him and naturally, and then it was a very simple process. And again, I had a friend who was in the banking business, so it was easy to transition and say, you're my banker. And so that made that process that much easier. But by then, through the 9 years that I lived there, you came on the scene. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think you were thinking of realty as a career back then.
Back in,
so
when did I meet you?
Purchased it in 2003.
I met you in 2003.
Yeah. So you weren't even, this wasn't even on your radar back then. But then when I went to sell it, we were, more just professionally, we were friends and with Gordon and whatnot. So it was natural for me to use you as a realtor on the way out the door. So I didn't think about that back then, that there could be a difference between a seller's agent and a buyer's agent. So I didn't even understand that. So naturally, when I saw you put the sign in the ground on Penn Ave, I was just thinking this would be easy. I would just go through you. And then when you said that I would need a different agent to be the buyer's agent,
right.
And obviously I knew Chelsea, but to be out of that comfort zone again, being like I don't know what Chelsea's like as far as professionally or whatever. So I was confident that I knew that I basically could hand you the reins and you take care of everything unless I needed to sign something. So it was an interesting flip to that. But
that's right.
We can get into that more too.
When you sold. So when did you buy Black Oak Road? Like when did you buy your first house? What year was that?
It would have been May, June of 2003.
Okay.
I think roughly.
Out of curiosity, how did you find that house? Because over the years, real estate has become all online based, and free.
Well, yeah, 2003. Yeah. Do you realize Zillow wasn't around in 2003?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear that maybe 5 years ago.
Like there were no .coms. Like there were no homes.com, realtor.com. Like there was nothing like that in 2003. So there's the newspaper print was still huge. Like there was the Ithaca Journal still had their
real estate journal.
Yeah, the real estate journal. So
it was a little packet, a little color book that you got with your newspaper.
Yep.
I didn't find Black Oak Road.
It found you.
My then fiance found Black Oak Road, and my bank account found Black Oak Road. But so we were actively looking. We were at the time, I think, pregnant with our first kid, so we were looking to get out of our apartment.
Oh, okay.
And so by the time we ended up having the kid, and then we had bought the house.
Okay.
but that's why we were actively looking
Okay.
to expand the family. So
And then it came time to sell it. And that's when I came along and I helped you sell that.
correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was fun. And that was your first experience selling a house,
Yes.
listing and selling a house. So I would love to hear about your experience as a seller,
Mm.
because, we can sit here and talk about being listing agents and what sellers do. And I know we talk about sellers and what they should do and the advice that we give them, but I would love to hear, and I'm sure people would love to hear from an actual real life seller and relate to you. Like, what was your experience selling your first house? And what did you think, like, how was it what you expected? And just tell us about your experience selling your house.
Well, the first thing to start with is you don't own a home. You live in a house, typically, say most people, if they don't move around a lot, will live in a home for a long time, childhood home, whatever. So you become very accustomed to what that house is and what it's like, and it's yours. It becomes your property, even though it's brick and mortar, just like a car. You have memories in it and you build all that stuff. And I obviously had been moved around a lot as a kid. So when I got into that house, it really was the first house. And I had my first kid in that house. And then I got married while I lived in that house. So there was a lot of memories built into that house. And I didn't realize until I sold it how much I had grown to love that house. So inviting other people into your house that you don't know is very nerve-wracking. And I remember walking through probably 10 houses before I bought it. So when I went to sell it, I was thinking, okay, this is the same thing. I'm going to have 10 people walking through my house. And those experiences were difficult, not only because there's other people in it, but at the time we had dogs.
Oh.
So we had to take the dogs out. Oftentimes, because of the schedule that I worked at that time, I would have to leave with the dogs in the truck, sit in the truck for an hour, and then bring them back. Other than that, hiring a realtor, obviously part of your conversations is that it reduces all those pitfalls of what can you do, what can't you do, what should you say, what you shouldn't you say. I remember very specifically, I was so darn proud of all the modifications that I had made to my house that I had put out like a portfolio of pictures of what it looked like when we moved in and what it looks like now, not to mention all the things you could see, new cabinets or new doors and things like that. But I remember I put out this portfolio of pictures and you very calmly came in and you said, what is this for? And I said, so they could see what I did and what it looks like now. And you go, yeah, okay, nobody really cares about that. Can't put that. We'll go ahead and put that away. So I was like, oh, okay. And you're like, they're going to see what they see. And it doesn't matter if they might look at that and go, oh, I would have never changed to that color. So it's good and bad. It's like having a pool, it could be right for some sellers and it could be wrong for some sellers. So you're like, just put it in the drawer. And if they have questions, they'll ask. So that was one of the first things that I was like, feeling that lack of control in the process, that you aren't really in control of what happened. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of control, of showings, people coming through.
Yeah.
What advice? That's great advice for a seller. If somebody's selling, what else might you say to a seller, a first-time seller? Should they expect or might they be aware of?
Well, depending on your agent as well, they may help you prepare and say, put this away, put that away, don't have any family pictures up. Those are the kind of think the general things. But basically turning lights on and opening up windows, or not opening up, but raising shades and blinds and things like that, so that you get the most amount of light in there, so that it looks bright and opening and warm and that type of thing. At the time we were going through that, and I think might be kind of where you're headed with this, is we were doing an inspection for radon, I think it was.
Was it the inspection period?
Yeah, because we had something that we had to put in the bathroom.
Oh, so they put the radon test in the bathroom?
Yeah.
Wow, this is a while ago, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that had to be in the bathroom. And the door had to be open, I think, for the bathroom. So we had a showing. And at the time I worked 3 to 11. And so I left the house with the dogs. And then I sat in my truck for a while, just up the street where I could see. And then after a while, I went for a drive. It was a hot summer day. So I had the dogs in the truck with the AC on. I took them for a drive. And then I came back and I was starting to get a little antsy because I had to go to work.
Mm.
I don't know. Have you heard this before?
No.
Oh, so I was starting to get a little antsy. I ended up calling the office and let them know I was going to be late, that the showing was going long. And finally, the clients, what I assumed were the clients, left. They got in a van and left. It was a couple, a younger couple. And then probably another 30, 40 minutes went by while I sat in the truck. And I don't know what that realtor was doing. And I don't want to say their name or where they were from, but they were there for quite a while afterwards. And then once they finally left, knowing I was already late, rushed in, threw the dogs in the house, and just decided I would take a quick look at make sure the bathroom door was still open, because I wanted to make sure that radon test was done correctly. So I went through and down the hall and into the bathroom. And when I opened the bathroom door, it was very clear to me that the realtor, or someone, I assume the realtor, because they were there after the clients left, had used the bathroom in a way that would be indicative of taking your time and maybe reading the newspaper. So I was very angry. And it goes back to the first statement, right? It's like, that's your home. That's where you raise your kids. That's where you eat your meals. That's your place. And in Chelsea's case, you built your home. You're the only one that's ever lived there. So there's no other memories there. But I remember leaving there, and where I lived at the time, there was no cell service. So I must have typed out 15 text messages, because this is 2012, to Lindsay, basically condemning the entire real estate system, and basically telling her I wanted the name and number of not only the realtor, but their supervisor and the board of realtors. And I was going to take down the whole syndicate because this person had taken, liberties with my house that I didn't appreciate. So I'm not sure there's really a way to combat that. I mean, if there was an emergency, there was an emergency. But so as a pitfall, to say, make sure that people take care of your house while they're in it.
Well, so you make it very clear what you will allow in your house and won't.
Correct.
I mean, obviously, yes, if there's an emergency, we understand.
Sure.
But the fact that it was a realtor, I mean, I mean, typically you might, there was no cell service, maybe. And I mean, this was 2012. Maybe they did try to get a hold of me and they couldn't, and say, hey, is it okay if I use the facilities? It's an emergency. Yeah. I mean, typically you kind of want to ask, because that is kind of a personal thing. Yeah.
And then of course, so the other part to that is also the timing. You give, typically a realtor will say, it should take about an hour and a half, if they do a thorough walkthrough. So I was prepared for an hour and a half. At that time in my life, I was very rigid with my time and things. So at the hour and a half mark, I was ready to be done with it. And it stretched out a little bit longer than that. So to be fluid in that, as far as, it might be smarter to go away, to physically leave the area and not actually see the people coming and going. So.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's tough when it is your house, but yeah, I always love that story.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some stories that we always talk about. We could write books, right? Mm-hmm. But instead, we're going to do a podcast. But instead, we do podcasts.
That's good.
It kind of brings us back to one of our last conversations on, when our sellers get ready to go on the market. Are you okay with someone using the bathroom? Are you okay with this and this and this? And because unfortunately, that's not the first story that I've heard about something very similar. And hey, it could have been worse. Your water could have been shut off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's good that we hear this. I mean, we can sit here or we can go and tell sellers, all the time. They can hear everything from us, but I think it's great that they hear it actually from somebody who's been through it, right. Somebody they can relate to, Yep. So.
And that wasn't the only house you sold. You've sold a second house since then.
Well, that's...
Well, then you bought one.
Well, right. So selling...
And then you sold another one.
Yeah, so selling that house and then moving into the second house, the Larchmont house, again, fell under another I would say, what's the word? Or something that didn't go as planned or that normally happens. So you guys have a system where you do a certain thing. And then, so on the buying of the second house during the final walkthrough,
Oh, yeah.
there was
I don't remember this.
stuff at Larchmont.
Oh, it was in the basement?
There was stuff in the basement, stuff in the garage, and there was even stuff in the cupboards.
Oh, the garage.
And I remember you calling me saying, listen, this is not 100% yet, we're closing in like an hour, and can you run over to that house, and there's a bunch of stuff there, and I had to go clean it up.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is when I, again, I was still a little bit angry about the selling of the house where the realtor used the bathroom. It was still heavy on my mind. It had only been a couple of weeks. And then I had to run to the new house. And I was like, doesn't your seller's agent do that? And there was something to do with the seller's agent had somebody that would go, or she would go and do a final walkthrough to make sure it was clear, but they were busy and they were closing something else. And
I don't even remember who that seller was or who this agent was.
I'm pretty sure I could tell you. But anyway,
You have a great memory.
there's certain things that are classified. But there was paint, and there was
I remember, yeah.
cupboards that had coffee mugs and stuff still in them. So
that's right.
So as you expect to walk in to do that walkthrough and see nothing, there's still stuff there that you have to clean up before you can move in. Was a little.
What have I said? What have I said?
Buyers don't want your shit.
Sellers. Buyers don't want your shit.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, this is one of those things that I learned through the process with both of you is if you're going to leave anything at all, maybe some paint that matches.
That's still fresh.
It's still fresh.
Yeah,
not 20 years old.
Right. Can't do anything.
You want to know why they don't get rid of it? Because it's the hardest thing to get rid of. You can't just put it in a dumpster.
Mm-hmm. It's like tires.
Oh, and you know what else? It's like, oh, I inherited it. I mean, we had this conversation before. Mm-hmm. I inherited it. So you inherited. No.
Yeah. So paint would be one thing you could leave behind if it's still fresh and you just painted within the last, say, 3 to 5 years. Yeah. But other than that, there really isn't anything. I don't need a ball mason jar full of nails or miscellaneous bolts and washers that I don't know what they go to.
Yeah. See, it's not just us saying this. Mm-hmm. It's real life. Yeah. So, yeah. But it's experiences. So you probably never thought about that, though, when you first bought or sold. Yeah. And you were talking about before how you had only hired me as, to list your house and then help you buy a house. And then when you went to buy Pennsylvania Ave, it was my sign in the yard. And I said, nope, you have to get a buyer's agent. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah. Wait, what?
Literally left this structure that we're in right now to drive to the school to pick up Charlotte from school and went that way to school and saw you literally putting the sign in the ground. And I went around the block and came back and said, I'll take it.
So you went from seeing me put the sign into the ground to becoming the sign guy.
Sat down the sign.
We're full circle.
Yeah. So
you went from buying to behind the scenes. I love it.
And I figured that would be a simple process because you were the seller. So it was a seller's process, but
seller's agent. But this goes, and then this goes to talk to how you learned the difference between a buyer's agent and a seller's agent.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's how a bill becomes a law. Yeah.
So what did you learn, Pat? And tell us, what did you learn about a seller's agent and a buyer's agent?
Well, basically what I thought was unique was it was great with the fact that, here's a little plug for the Heart and Homes team. When you have two team members, the communication is so much faster. Unless it has to be documented, a quick text back and forth between you guys. I mean, things moved right along and things were easily coordinated. I won't say there was any really bad stuff or big stuff that happened when I was selling Black Oak to buy Larchmont or selling Larchmont. But, it would always take time. I don't know what it is about Sundays that maybe it was because I was off work, dead on the couch, that I would be like, oh, what about this? And I would text you. And that's where I think Realty never sleeps. Like it was Sunday afternoon. I'm like, I hate to bother you. And you're like, nope, this is what I do. This is how I do it.
I like the face. Did I?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you make that up because we didn't.
No, we never FaceTime during that. But
Because I wasn't making that face.
there would be a text message or whether it was an email, whatever you had to do to follow the rules and the laws. Might be 48 hours before there was a response to that question
From the other side.
from the other side. So, and not that they were, ignoring you or doing it maliciously, but with you two, it was back and forth, bang, bang, done.
Mm-hmm.
And it might even have been where you were in the office together at the time that the question was posed. So, that part of it made it a lot more seamless. So that made it a lot better. As far as going back to the original part of the question, though, the difference between a buyer and a seller's agent, I didn't realize how much more work I felt like watching Chelsea do that there was a lot more work from the buyer side because you're basically asking all the questions and seeking all the information for the buyer, whether they're a first-time buyer or not. They have a lot of questions. Whereas the seller, you're kind of holding all the cards and you're kind of sitting back. And then if they say, how much is BLEP, you go, here you go. And there isn't a packet that you push forward. Here's all the information. I mean, the MLS does that for you in a way, but if there's questions about what conveys and what doesn't, or can this stay or that stay, it's really the seller that has the information, and the buyer's agent's the one that are out there trying to, pick out what information the buyer actually wants. So that was the biggest difference, I think. And it was interesting because it was your first contract. Right. So you were even learning some of that stuff too. Yeah. So that made it very interesting for me. Yep. And it was, I've bought a few houses now, and usually the closing comes with some gifts from the realtor, which is nice. It was, it was your first contract, so I think you went over the top on that one.
I remember sitting in the attorney's office now. I remember I looked at the basket and I was like, okay.
It was a big basket.
I was like, you put that together? She's like, well, yeah. I was like, all right.
Stuff, yeah. I still have a lot of the spices, I still cook with them. Yeah, it's good.
Well, usually when it's the buyer's sometimes first home or like you're going into an empty house. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So
it was an empty house because I was in an apartment. So that was, a big transition for me and the girls. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. The apartment upstairs.
Yeah.
We all look up.
I used to sleep up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you transitioned from client to now you're behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing. You went from being sort of an outsider, seeing how it worked on the outside, to now being behind the scenes.
Yeah, and then I want to talk about that, but then the other part of it was buying property for the first time.
That's right. You bought the land. That's
houses
right.
And sell houses, but then I also bought land, which was extremely easy because there's no testings. There's no, you don't have to turn the electric on. You don't have to turn the water on. You don't have to test the water. All these other things you had to do made it that much simpler just buying a plot of land. And that was pretty interesting. But again, what would have been better is if I had been able to build that land up and have something come out of it. But they don't make anymore. So I sold it, made some money on it, but that was a good process too.
So it's an investment.
It was.
Right?
It was initially not an investment as a plan, but it became one. Once I realized I wasn't going to build on it, then it became hold it as long as I wanted to until I was ready to get out from under it. But and then making the transition to helping out and being the grunt. It's an interesting side of seeing what goes through that. The comment you made a couple weeks ago about how when you asked me to put a sign in the ground, how fast it has to go in the ground because it has to be advertised on the MLS and has to go in, and then how fast some of those things change. Putting in a under contract rider, and then that could sit for months.
Yeah.
Or how fast it does flip, even though it's New York. So,
yeah. So the rules and regs behind advertising and real estate. And so you're getting a little bit of a schooling behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm like, wait, because when I put it in the calendar of when I ask you to put a sign in, I'm like, you're like, oh, I can just hit that up today. I'm like, no, wait.
Yeah.
Wait, don't do that until the actual day because it has to be, because then I have to put it into the MLS within 24 hours or I'm going to get a fine because of the clear cooperation.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. And being some of those aren't in a local area.
Oh, yeah.
I'm physically driving to Syracuse to go watch my daughter play volleyball, and I'm driving past the address on a Friday, and you go, no, not till Monday.
Yeah.
So then I got to go all the way back over to Cortland on Monday, but then I, asked the question why, I gave you the answer, which makes sense. But not knowing that in the beginning, nobody knows that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that.
So those are some of the things, the public doesn't realize. They're like, well, you just put a sign in the ground and you just do that. We're like, no, there's a little more to it, and
lots of regulations that we have to go by.
Yeah.
Especially timing and marketing and all of that. And
because we do get fined if we do something wrong. And I know we talk about that a lot. We went down the rabbit hole of, wait, guys, we don't just stick a sign in the ground and open a door, and how, the public really likes to put us down a lot. The joke is you wake up as a real estate agent and you're unemployed. So why do we get up and do this? Why are we grateful for the grind? Because we are. And there are so many stories that outweigh the bad. And that's why we get up and do this every day. And I had one, I think I told somebody about this the other day. I went on a listing appointment and nobody had ever asked me this question before. And I was like, this is fantastic. Thank you for asking me this. And they said, this must be hard for you sometimes. Like, you go in and you sell these people's houses, because this house that I was at and they were asking me to interview and sell, they had really put their heart and soul into this house. They had really modified this. They spent 3 years with, it was like a little cottage, 1940s cottage, and they turned it into this really unique, it's not like super weird unique, but unique with an architect. They took their time to really make it their style. So they really poured their heart and soul into this. And I was with them. They gave me this wonderful tour for like an hour and a half. And as I was leaving, they're like, this must be hard for you. You go into people's homes and they, they're asking you to sell it, and it must be emotional. And I was like, yeah, it is. And specifically, some of the people I've helped, I will help them with their estates, the house that they grew up in. And they've asked me to come in and help them sell their family home that their family is no longer. And it's really hard and emotional for them. Or, in Trumansburg, I helped sell someone's estate, and she thanked me and she's like, thank you for taking so much care, knowing that this was my family's home. And so I'm thinking about this and I'm getting a little emotional about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm getting a little emotional about it now. I'm like, this is why you go in. These people, you are genuinely helping these people. And that is so wonderful. And then the other one I sold on Hanshaw Road, the daughter was helping sell her mom's estate, and she had no clue. She was like, I don't know what to do here. Can you help me? So I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We start here. We do this. You're going to do 1, 2, 3. We're going to get it on the market. Within a week, we had it, multiple offers, under contract, cash, no contingencies, go. And I was like, she goes, I need an attorney. She's from out of town. She didn't know what to do. And I said, yep, here's my recommendation. These 3, pick one. She goes, okay, this one, boom, boom, boom. I said, I'll get the abstract to them. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of this. She's like, would you know somebody that can mow the lawn? Yep. Okay. Again, we're a resource, right? We got to closing. She goes, I can't thank you enough. She's like, I never could have done this. And I was like, you're welcome. Like, that is why we do it. We're literally a resource for these people that have no clue. And like, you're helping them with this. It's not just a house, right? They have no idea sometimes. Oh my gosh. And then if you're a first-time home buyer, they are so grateful. They're like, we never could have done it. Like, that's a huge deal. If you were a first-time home buyer once.
Yeah.
Owning your first home, that is huge. And they look at you and they're like, thank you so much. That feeling is
a lot of jobs, right? We don't know what it's like to be a banker.
Right.
We don't know what it's like to do whatever. And they may appear to be doing nothing. It's just really easy.
Right.
You stick a sign in the ground. People come to you. You walk them through. You take their money. It's easy. Selling a house is easy. So it's a very dynamic job in the fact, like you said, it's a resource, but it's also, there's a lot that goes on in the background and the rewarding of making the sale and making somebody, like you said, there is a little bit of sadness maybe leaving your first home, but being the person that's buying their first home, the reward is great to be there. So
That joy, when you get to be a part of that person's joy, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said it. And now you've experienced it. You've been behind the scenes, so you can speak to it as somebody who's been there, that you can see, yeah, these realtors aren't just doing nothing.
Right.
And I'm sure you've got stories.
Yeah. Some really, really happy ones, and unfortunately, some heartbreakers as well. And you don't pick and choose who you work with or why you do this or why you're selling this house or helping buy this house. And I actually had a couple that I helped. We had been looking for houses, and we had some very specific requirements that had to be in the house. And we couldn't find anything that was perfect for them. And we ended up going with a vacant plot of land, and they were going to build their dream home. And halfway through, one of them passed away, and they were just months out from closing and the final parts of the construction. And unfortunately, I did come back in, and after, a lot of back and forth, she couldn't keep it and she had to sell. And it was the most heartbreaking thing, but I was so thankful that I could be there to help her and walk her through that. And I mean, I still reach out to her every once in a while, and it's good to see that, life does go on. It's still hard. But I was part of something that was so difficult, and I helped her through that. And
Yeah. We get to be there for moments that not everybody sees. We're behind the scenes, and we're there, and it's really cool. We get to see these parts of people's lives that a lot of people don't see. We may only be there for a couple months, but we're there for a pretty big emotional part of it, because I know, as we talked about it before, buying and selling is emotional. It's, you just said it, your house that you've put, it's your house. You're in there. You've put a lot into it. That's where you eat your meals, cook your meals. That's where you are. That means a lot to you.
Oh yeah.
So
a lot of times I hear, this is where I brought my babies home.
Yeah.
This is where I raised my family.
Yeah.
And now they're moving on to the next chapter. And it's really hard to take those emotions and still go forward. And that's where we come in, where we have to keep them in mind, but also play them down, because we don't want your emotions to impact your decision making. And we can't ignore those emotions. That is huge. That is a huge part of your life and your family's life. And
we take those into consideration. So obviously, we like I said, the seller I was helping with, you're mindful of those, but we're also the buffer between the buyer and the seller when emotions can run high. And that's why you hire us, right? As Pat laughs.
I'm just going to ask 300, and then let them bring it down. No, that's not what you do. That was one of my favorite conversations with you, was selling Larchmont, because unfortunately it was in the middle of a divorce. And I needed to get as much as I could out of it. I was like, well, I see all these houses go for this or this. And this wasn't my first time either, but I would let the emotion get the best of me. And I said, I'm going to ask, 350, and we'll let them bring it down. And you were like, do you want to sell it, or do you want to sit on it for 6 months? And I was like, I need to sell it. I need this money. You're like, okay, then we're going to ask this much. And I was under contract in under 24 hours. So,
and I was like, I think I was probably a little more gentle. I was like, okay, Pat.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't want him. I'm thinking, I don't want him to yell at me. I don't want him to yell at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I think maybe.
Yeah. But it was an emotional time, and you are that buffer. You guys are the ones that, can separate out the personal part of it and make it a business transaction, which is what it ends up being in the end. So affecting a lot of people.
But we also take your feelings into consideration.
And then
we
tend to feel them later that day. And we just kind of let it all pour out later that day.
Yeah.
Usually our spouses we usually direct it at our spouses, and then they're like, okay.
It was that kind of day. Understood.
Yeah. So, but that's the nuance behind it. That's why we make it look easy to people on the outside. If they're just looking at it and they're like, "Oh, you guys, you make it look so easy." Well, great. I'm glad that we do, because then that means we're doing a good job. That means we're doing our job, right? We're supposed to make it look easy, which if we are making it look easy, then we know we are, because usually that's when people come to us and they're like, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting my license. I'm thinking about getting my real estate license." And usually I'll get a couple of those a year. People will DM me or they'll call me up and be like, "Can I talk to you? I've been thinking about getting my real estate license, or I'm thinking about getting licensed." And I'll be like, "Okay, let's have coffee." And I will sit and chat and I will lay it out. I will lay out the good, the bad, the ugly, because this is a business. You're running your own business. The self-employment, the taxes, the costs, the benefits, all of it. Scheduling. Everybody's like, "You're so flexible. You can work any hours you want." I'm like, "Sure. Which 90 hours a week?" Realty never sleeps. That's where hashtag Realty never sleeps. That's right.
So there's a saying in real estate that if you plan a weekend or a vacation, it blows up. Like, people are calling. People want to see this. You're putting houses under contract. You're doing this while you're on vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband and I, we just dipped away for a quick weekend getaway. And in my purse, I had my iPad. I had my phone. I had, I'm pretty sure I had like our talking points and my laptop. And I went and pulled my laptop out Saturday. And he looks at me, he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I just need to send a few emails and check the MLS. He's like, I was like, He's like, no, put it back. But then, put my laptop back in my backpack or in my purse and send out a few text messages. "Yes, here's the open house. Here's this listing." And Justin's like, "Does it stop?" I was like, no, we have a very, very flexible schedule sometimes, but we are still at, the beck and call of people who need it and when they need it. And
it's a timely business.
It is.
I mean, we're on contracts that have timelines.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always kind of freak out a little bit. Like, I don't want somebody to miss out on something. I don't want somebody to be like, "I wanted to see this, or I needed this, or I needed that information," and you not get it to them or get it to the attorney or do something. I know I'm like that. Also, it's sort of a disease that I just can't help myself. Like, also, it just doesn't feel like work for me. It doesn't feel like work. And I think you have to have a certain personality to do this. You have to have that entrepreneurial spirit that it doesn't feel like work. I mean, what do they say? When you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it is. So, we make it look easy when people are like, "That looks easy. I want to do that." And that's what we're supposed to do. Right. You love your job. You know that you're doing something right when you make it look easy.
I've never understood how somebody can say, "That career looks easy. I'll try that." It's not a scoop of ice cream, right? You know what? I want to be a firefighter. They have great schedules. Don't worry about that running into a burning building business. It's a great schedule. They have 4 days off so they can have a side hustle. It's real estate. It's all the time. It's not an easy. I guess I was waiting for you to finish because I wanted to.
No, go ahead.
Laughing, but my question is what's more difficult? Like now, even being a little bit inside, right, on the work in the sign stuff, what's easier? Or let's say not easier. What's less? What's less work, selling or buying? Because I see a lot of work going into the selling. There's all the marketing. I'm putting signs out. You're doing, "Hey, clean this up, do this to this." You're scheduling. Or when you're the buyer or the seller's agent, where you basically do the listing, and then there's paperwork on the backside that nobody sees, obviously. But then you're basically just kind of hanging back for a little bit, waiting for offers to come in, and you're managing those offers. But man hours, business hours, where you're actually behind the computer doing work. Which is easier? Which one's more time consuming than buying or selling?
Multiple offer situation or not?
It depends.
Yeah.
Listen, people ask me questions all the time, and I feel so bad because I literally just did this. I volunteered to do some pro bono work with INHS. So I literally just taught one of their buyer classes, first-time home buyer classes last Tuesday. And I get a lot of questions. And every single time they're like, "Well, question, blah, blah, blah. And I go, it depends. It depends.
Sure.
Literally in real estate, you go, it depends because every scenario is different.
Sure.
Every person is different. There is never a cut and dry. The only thing that's cut and dry is the contract, the legal paperwork. But even then, it depends on what you put in it.
Right.
Because you put in Part A, Section 6,
Yep.
you can add terms and you can change terms. So again, then that depends. So that's a great question because I don't think, I know I've never been asked that question.
So they're not, one's not easier than the other. It's not like,
Oh, it's never easier. You're dealing with people. When you deal with people, it's never easier. So there's always the people dynamics. So man hours with listings, when you go get the interview with the listing. So I spent an hour and a half with a seller and I have yet to hear back from them if I even got the listing. So I've spent an hour and a half for free for them. I did work because I put together a CMA so that I actually spent all weekend on that CMA market analysis, comparable market analysis CMA. Prior to actually sitting with them for an hour and a half. So I spent all weekend doing that. And then I sat with them for an hour and a half. And I don't even know if I have the job.
right.
So there's that. And then if you get the job, then there's all the paperwork. And then that's the time investment. And then there's the money investment with the photos, the video, the marketing.
Right.
And then after it's listed, after you get it on the MLS, the multiple listing service, then there's the
Offers and
push out to the actual marketing, the constant contact, the social media, there's all that. And then there's talking to the realtors. There's making sure that you have all the information correct, getting the information to the correct people. And then scheduling the showings, scheduling the launch, I don't like to call it the open house in this situation. It would be scheduling the launch party. And then hopefully the offers come back in, but then you're fielding all the questions from agents. Well, what about this? What about that? And you could be fielding questions 7 p.m. at night, 10 p.m. at night, on the weekends, 7 p.m. Friday night. You could be at a football game fielding questions.
so
That's listing. And then there's the buying side.
Oh, but don't forget then the water, the septic, the inspection, all of the negotiation.
That's after you get an offer.
Right.
After you get an offer, if you negotiate and come to terms, then you have to take them through the steps of the offer. Attorney review. What are the conditions or contingency to the offer? Make sure you meet the timelines. Make sure they get the abstract to the attorney.
that sounds easy. Sounds like an easy career.
And then make sure, that you...
Next thing you know, Pat's going to be like,
Pat's
hey,
gonna be like,
surprise!
hey, can I talk to you about it?
Oh,
Yeah, Pat's going to be like you did. Surprise, I got my license.
I took the class. No, I'm good. No, I just, when people say that, it goes back to what kind of started this whole conversation, which was people see what you do and they think, you put a sign on the ground and then you collect the check. And there's so much more that goes into that.
Yeah.
Whether, buying or selling, whether one is, you may find that certain realtors prefer to sell than they do to buy for whatever reason. Maybe they've streamlined the process, but sounds like there's 47 steps that aren't listed in the placing the sign in the ground.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, I know I prefer marketing, obviously. So I really like to work with sellers just because I prefer.
Sure.
I like to market. But then there's the buying side because then you have to drive buyers all around and show them houses. So that does take time.
And that could take years.
Right.
I mean, I've worked with buyers that we've looked at dozens of houses over the years, and then they kind of put it on hold and then they decide to start searching again. And it's really just a matter of finding that perfect house. And as a buyer's agent, the last thing you want to do is push someone to buy a house that they're not fully in love with. And I know we've kind of talked about red flags in the past, but it's going to take as long as it's going to take. And there's sometimes that it's the first house and you put in an offer and then you guide them through that process. And hopefully it's not a multiple offer situation, but other times you're looking at house after house after house. And it's just it takes time, and that's what we're there for. We're there for the long haul. And because the last thing I want is for my buyer to call me up, Chelsea, I hate this house.
Why'd you make me buy it?
Straight up buyer's remorse. It's not what we're doing here.
Right.
So, kind of circling back to the buyer's portion, I mean, not only are you looking up at houses and trying to find houses within that search criteria, but you're also helping guide them to getting financed and getting pre-approved and that whole process.
Well, first of all, they have to come to you and find you, right?
Right.
So like first they have to decide that they're going to buy a house.
Mhm.
So like the first-time homebuyer class that I taught, these people, first-time homebuyers, they don't even know where to begin.
Right.
So if they're a little bit savvy, they know that they can talk to a realtor first, and then the realtor is going to tell them, well, first and foremost, you have to go to a lender to know what your buying power is. Like, you have to know what your budget. You're not going to go shop for a car without knowing what your budget is. You're not going to go look at a $100,000 car with a $20,000 budget. I mean,
Same thing
maybe.
with the house.
Why not?
Do you like the car analogy? Because I did that
I've
for
been
you.
grinding this whole time you guys have been talking. A lot of it is similar to buying a car. Like the analogy that you want to walk through the house in many houses. You can go to cars.com and look at 50 different Chevy Silverados, but it's different when you sit in it and you drive it.
Mhm.
So you have to go walk through that house because pictures don't always sell. Some pictures may make it look tiny and other ones make it look huge.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So you have to go and look at it. You have to walk through it. Is it laid out right? Does it have the right number of bathrooms? Yes, but where are they? Did somebody add on a portage on out the back and put joists underneath it and call it a bathroom? So you have to walk through it and say, this is our fit and finish, right? This is, I can make this work. So I think a lot of it is completely relatable to buying a car, just way more expensive and also way more in depth in the process. But
And legal process too.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's fantastic because you can look at houses online all day. Everybody loves Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com. And we talked about this before, like in 2003, those didn't even exist. You
Right.
had to get a realtor to go look at homes, or you looked them on a newspaper. So,
Mhm.
and now buyers are lucky. We've got 3D tours, you've got videos, you've got not just photos, you've got aerial shots. So you can actually even see the area.
Right.
Entire property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas before you had to do a drive-by to see what kind of, where it was located or
Right.
what was situated around it.
Mhm.
So now they do all of these things. You can get a lot of information online.
Mhm.
But I know buyers, they don't even know where to start sometimes.
Right.
So they have to start with either going to a lender or talking to a realtor. So that's really where the process starts with a buyer.
Mhm.
And then they talk to a realtor, or they find out from an acquaintance, a neighbor, a friend, a family member, a
Mhm.
coworker. Hey, who did you use
Right.
for a realtor, right?
Yep.
And then they're like, okay, where do I start?
Well, I think the buyer's agent, in that buying process, you are on the offensive. You're trying to find out all the information, so you're pushing out, asking those questions.
Mhm.
And whereas in the seller side, you're just kind of waiting for those questions to come in. But I know you and I walked through, and I hadn't bought a house in a long time, but you and I walked through, and there was a lot of questions that we both had actually for each other.
Mhm.
Well, do you want that or do you want this?
Right.
And I would say, well, what about this? And you'd go, you know what? this is my first time. I haven't ever
Mhm.
encountered that. So we kind of went through it together, which was
Right.
good. But you almost have to have a list of things that you check off
Right.
as a buyer's agent to know that, well, do I need to do this? Last time you went through it, a pool wasn't in the process. Now there's a pool. So what goes with the pool? What doesn't go with the pool?
Mhm.
So
It's almost more, you spend a lot of time. I feel like you spend a lot of time talking with buyers.
And one thing is it changes.
Mhm.
The wants and the needs can be one thing when you first start, and then months down the line, it can be completely different. They're now expecting, or there's a pet involved, or they want a different area, job relocation, or anything like that. So, that search criteria can quickly change, or they can see something and they're like, oh, I actually don't want that, or I really like that. Let's
Mhm.
add that to the list and flip flop. There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of changes. And
Sometimes financial situations can change too mid search, which is crazy because interest rates. Pat has a story. Speaking of interest rates, like Pat has a story.
So let's talk about things changing.
Oh boy.
It's like banking. I like stuff. So I buy things And so I was driving back from Chelsea, and I were talking before the show this morning about being on vacation. And I was on vacation with a friend to casinos down south from here. And we were on our way back, and I was in the truck with a friend, two friends. And my banker came on, and she called on Bluetooth. So I just answered the phone, and we were talking. And she goes, we're pushing forward on this. Everything's going really great. Can you tell me what a coleman is? And I said, a coleman? I don't know what you're talking about. And she goes, we ran your credit, and you just purchased a $28,000 Coleman. And I go, oh, my camper. She goes, you don't buy a camper in the middle of buying a house. So the gentleman that was with me in the car piped up and said something. She's like, oh my God. And I didn't realize somebody else was in the car too. So, because she was like divulging all my personal information over the phone, which obviously I was comfortable with because I knew the gentleman. But she was like, you don't do that. You don't buy a house. She's like, we ran your credit. You were good to go. This is your, debt to income ratio. And it's good. She's like, and now you have a 26-foot camper. I was like, all right, good to know. Next time I won't buy a camper while I'm in the process of buying a house. Check that box. So yeah, we're buyers. We don't know. That's why we have to ask all the questions.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Please don't open any new lines of credit ever. From the moment you get pre-approved to the moment you close, nothing should change during that time frame.
Yeah.
Except for your down payment. If you want to continue saving.
Yeah, continue saving. Yeah. And they're going to want to know where every penny comes from too. So if you get a gift.
Yes.
Because your parents or friends or family, anybody can gift you money for a down payment. Because I don't know if we know this, but New York State is one of the states that has the highest closing costs in the nation. I know that's probably something we shouldn't brag about, but so the barriers to entry to owning a home are basically down payment and closing costs, right? So anybody can gift you. They just need to, the lenders just need to know where that money comes from. They need to know where every penny comes from.
And there is a certain amount that they can gift you tax-free as well.
Yes.
And that's something that you should talk to your lender and your financial advisor about. But there is always that
a year. I think it's $13,000 or $13,500 a year.
But we're not professionals, so go check
that you can be gifted.
Financial advisor.
Yes, I'm not a financial advisor.
We'll bring one on eventually.
Yes, we do have a financial advisor that I've already discussed that we can bring on.
Oh.
Imagine that. But yes, I believe a family member can gift you $13,000 a year tax-free to that. Yes.
Yes.
So, but I'm not a financial advisor.
It has to be a family member.
Yes,
it cannot be an employer or a friend. So that's kind of something to also consider. But it also has to be documented money. You can't.
There's no more. There's no more no-doc loans.
No, I actually had a verbal offer come through a couple of years back, and they wanted to pay cash, and we're like, great, no problem. We just need proof of funds. And he's like, well, how about a picture of my duffel bag full of cash? I was like, no, that does not work. No, I don't.
The Patriot Act kind of like,
thank you. And
Is your last name Escobar?
Are you related to Jimmy Hoffa?
But so that does not work. And a picture of just stacks of cash is not proof of funds.
Did you? This was when our. I'm not kidding you. I actually saw this. Oh man, when our office was down on Meadow Street. We actually had somebody that good.
Yeah, it must be good.
Came in for their earnest money. They had cash. I'm not kidding you. They literally had a photocopy of all the bills, of all the $20 bills.
That's proof.
As their earnest money. And then the bank goes, no, that's not earnest money. We need a check.
Yep.
They literally had copies of the cash. I
That's
had a
crazy.
photocopy
That's not,
of the cash. And that just, yeah, sorry. That was funny. That just reminded me of that. That happened.
mhm.
I think my mom gave me some money when I bought Black Oak Road, and I want to say you had me.
Yeah,
It was cash, and you said, well, that's great, but she needs to write you a check,
Yep.
and so we can take a
Yeah.
picture of it and have
Yeah.
proof of it. So,
Yep.
but I was thinking about it while she was laughing. I've only done VA loans. So when it comes to my experience with, you talked about
Yeah.
getting a lender and having people go through that financial process, there's a bunch of different loans. And I know obviously
Yeah.
you're not a lender, but I don't even really understand the difference between like I have a VA loan obviously a couple times, but then there's like
You got a USDA loan to buy Larchmont, though. We talked about this.
I only went with that, I think, because I had a VA loan and you couldn't get another loan. Well, even though I was selling my VA loaned home, I couldn't then go back immediately into another VA loan.
I thought we got you USDA because you could then use the entire household income to qualify, but you didn't have to have the other person on the loan.
That's probably correct. We didn't want her credit on there.
Exactly.
Right.
Because that would have brought your buying power down.
Correct. I don't remember that.
That's funny. I remember that, but I don't remember
Well,
the
because
other
that
stuff.
went through Jim Shippey
at Elmira Savings.
Elmira Savings.
Yeah. So there's lots of different options for a buyer for financing. You know,
Right.
there's the conventional, there's the FHA, there's the USDA, a VA if you've served. And the best person to tell you what you would be qualified for would be your lender, because they're going to run your debt to income. They're going to run your credit. They're going to see how much down payment you can afford. They're also going to tell you if you qualify for seller concessions, which a lot of people don't know about, which is getting money. Basically, you're financing some of your closing costs. You know, that could be an option. Not everybody qualifies for it, but if you can't afford, say, that full 3 or 5 or 20% down, which you don't have to have 20% down. That's the biggest misconception is, well, I don't have 20%. I can't buy a house. There's programs that will allow you to finance less or, you know, put less down. But then there's also grants and programs that each lender has specific to the program. And, you know, there's free money out there. And that's
Free money.
there. Well,
I know it sounds like a misnomer, but it's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's just another thing that a good buyer's agent will know,
Mhm.
and they'll know to give you information on. And I was holding an open house last weekend, and a first-time homebuyer came through with her parents, and she was asking a lot of questions, and she was like, okay, well, what if I was interested and wanted to put an offer in on this house? She hadn't even gone to a lender first. And we have a first-time homebuyer booklet, and I always have my first-time homebuyer booklet at my open houses and everything. And I said, well, go through this booklet and it'll tell you step by step. However, you need to go to a lender first to know how much you can afford. And they can tell you what kind of financing program or mortgage program that would be best for you. And if you want to work it backwards, because a lot of people just know what they can afford monthly. And so what I like to tell them is, if you know what you can afford for your housing cost monthly, go to the lender and tell them what you can afford monthly, and then have them work it backwards and say, okay, because you can afford this monthly, then they're going to work it backwards and tell you what program would be best for you based on your situation. Like Chelsea said, whether you don't have a lot for a down payment, saved up for a down payment, or what your credit score is, or what your debt to income is. So then they can say, well, then this USDA program with zero money down will be the best for you. Or you've served, so this VA program will be the best for you with zero money down. Or maybe FHA will be because it's 3%, but then they tack on the MIP.
So consult your lender.
Yes. But anyway, so I was telling her, and I was like, so you need to go to a lender because it can be all of these things. And I was like, and if you don't know a lender, then here's
a nice long list. This
in the buyer's book. And then I said, of course, if you have insomnia too, my buyer's book is great for that too.
Yeah.
It's very dry. It can be very dry.
Buyer is a bag of cash. Let us know.
Yes.
One thing that I always like to suggest to new buyers, starting out the financial process, call someone local. I mean, yes, you can always go on Rocket Mortgage or something online, but if you were to go to a local bank, one, they know the market. They have the list of appraisers. The appraisers are also local. I've had banks where it's been, say, Rocket or something large like that, that's nationwide. They send in an appraiser, and the appraiser's from 2 hours away. They don't know the market. They don't know the other comps. Yes, they have access to pull, but they don't know as much as someone local. Plus, on the upside, you have an issue with your mortgage, you call your local bank. You can stop in at your local bank. You need to change something, you need to refinance, you need to do whatever. That person is right there. They're local. They're familiar with the contract. They're familiar with the market. You can stop in and see them at any point. And
with the appraiser thing, I mean, we're not seeing a ton of appraisals come in low, but now that the market is going back to a balanced market, the reason we say local appraisers is because appraisals are important when you're buying, because you want the property to appraise at purchase price or above,
right,
where they're not going to lend you the money at that price.
So there's a lot of questions between the appraised value, the assessed value, and the market value or list price. And everybody thinks that those numbers should be the same, and not technically. We want the assessed value to be as low as possible, because that's what your taxes are based off of. The lower that is, the lower, the better.
Right. You don't want to pay taxes on a really high number.
You want the list price and market value to be as close as possible to what the comps are going to tell you your house is worth.
Could we just have a little sidebar? Because I want to get on my soapbox for 1 second about market value. So it is what a buyer will pay and a seller will accept. That is not in any undue pressure. That's market value.
So I would have been considered undue pressure because I was trying to sell it during a divorce.
No. Undue pressure would be like...
No, I mean, the court told me I had to sell it.
Undue pressure would be like a foreclosure or a short sale.
That makes sense. Sure.
So it means you're on the open market. A seller's willing to accept this. A buyer pays this. You guys have a meeting of the minds.
That's market value.
That's market value.
I understand.
So why do we need an appraiser to come in and say, oh, no, wait, I'm going to give it this value. This is the value. No, the definition of market value is what a seller's willing to accept and a buyer's willing to pay. Okay, that's my soapbox. I'm done. Go ahead.
So then we have the appraised value, which is what the appraiser tells the bank that the property is worth. And we want that to meet or exceed the contracted price. Otherwise, the bank's not going to lend you that full amount. The buyer either has to come up with that difference at closing in cash, documented funds. The purchase price has to be renegotiated, or the deal could fall apart. I mean, the bank is only going to give you what the bank says the appraiser says it's worth.
And in my situation, my buyer, because the appraisal came in $9,000 less than the purchase price, my buyer decided that they weren't going to buy because they didn't renegotiate. Like nothing got renegotiated. So we're back to square one, which is okay because they're first-time home buyers, and I could tell that they were not comfortable with everything. And so I made sure to let them know, hey guys, it's okay if you don't want to go through with this. We don't have to do a reevaluation of value, which is basically asking the bank to look at the comparables again and give it another reevaluation. I said, it's okay if you want to walk away from this and start over. It's basically, I was telling them it's okay because I could tell that they were nervous. Yep. And they're like, yeah, after everything we want to walk away. I said, okay, that's great. We're coming into the fall where there's more inventory. Interest rates are coming. Yeah. They're predicted to become lower. And obviously the Fed just cut the rate, and we're predicted to have interest rates go a little bit lower. So I think that made them feel a little bit better.
So with the interest rates, everybody is, interest rates, time to go, time to jump. What does an interest rate do for a buyer?
Well, interest rates obviously affect how much a buyer can purchase or borrow, because the higher the interest rate, the less money they can borrow. When did you buy your last house?
2019, August.
So you
Got a smoking deal.
interest rates. You can speak to this because you
think
got an interest rate.
3.3
Oh my gosh.
3.26.
Oh my gosh.
No, 3.675.
3.675. And right now they're at 6.6,
Right.
6.5. That's the rate that the banks get to borrow money from the Fed, right? So the Fed lends money to the banks. The banks lend money to you in the form of a mortgage. So the Fed rate that they cut, it doesn't really, you're not going to see the mortgage rates go down like that because it doesn't really affect the mortgage. The mortgage follows the 10-year treasury yield, which is about at 4%. The Fed rate is about 4%. So the banks are borrowing money from the Fed. So their interest rate went down a little bit for borrowing. And now they can probably slightly lower the interest rate for what they're lending you. So the mortgage that they're lending you is a higher risk loan to you. It's long term. And so they put a little vig on top. They put a little juice on top because you're a little more of a risk, right? So they also, because you could refinance, you could default. They also have, some of their fees. They have to make a little money. They got to make a little money. This isn't a charity, right? So that's why you see the rate didn't plummet at the news of the Fed cutting the rate.
Yeah.
So all of those people who own homes at a 3-point-something rate are never going to sell. They're holding on to their homes. That's a lot of the reason why we had a low inventory. Right.
Yeah.
You're not selling.
Yeah. Can't even refi.
No.
When your rate is going to double.
No.
That's not smart money.
Yeah. No. So when the rates, you're not selling, but when the rates come down for all those people who purchased or were waiting to purchase because the rates were at 7 and now they're coming down to 6, that's huge.
That's huge.
Well,
so now the buyers can afford more because the interest is lower, which means their budget now can be a little bit higher. They can borrow a little more money because the interest rate is lower.
Okay.
I've heard you several times in the past 2 years say, just buy the house. When the rates come down, you can refi. And that's so smart. I mean, you're going to pay a little bit more. Maybe you're going to stretch your budget a little bit per month because the payment is, $1,800 a month. But now if it comes down 1.5 points, you know what I mean? That's catastrophic when it comes to you refi that out.
Right.
If you don't take a shorter term, then your monthly payment's going to come down considerably. And you're saving that money in the long term when you're not paying that much interest. 1.5% is huge.
Yeah.
There's a saying, it's marry the house and date the rate. If you find a house that you absolutely love, even if you're, anticipating those rates to change, if you find that house, put in an offer and start the closing process, because after that, you can refinance at any time. But if you wait and you wait, you could get into a multiple offer situation on the house that you absolutely love. You're going to start waiving contingencies. You're going to pay more for the house overall. So you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons, but you can always lock down the house and change that rate.
Well, especially if you're in the market right now, just like you said, if you found the house that you love and you're kind of waiting because you're like, oh, there's more inventory right now. There's not a lot of buyers out. I can kind of wait a little bit longer. Everybody else is thinking the same thing. And if that rate comes down, everybody's going to come to the market and you're going to lose it.
And then you're going to end up in your multiples. Well, much worse condition than you were. Yeah.
Yep.
Wanted to add one more thing to the whole, we talked a little bit about banking too. And that being that this is my third house, fourth property total. One of the things that I didn't know that could happen, it's probably in the fine print of the contract, but it's never something you think is going to happen. I did go to a local bank and I went to the banker who I had purchased from before. It was a different actual physical banker. The person was different, but it was the same bank because I liked the fact that they were close by. I could stop at the office if I had to. Unfortunately, the individual had retired and then this other person had taken it over. So I had that, and I think I had it for about a year. And then I just basically got a packet in the mail saying, sorry, we sold your loan to this other company. And they are fairly local and they're bigger, so they have more behind them, like going from, say, a trust company to Tompkins Trust Bank to like an M&T. They are national, but it kind of threw me because you kind of get into that rhythm. Like, I know where my insurance comes from. I know where my banker is. If I have an issue, I pick up the phone and call my friend. She'll answer the phone. And now it's like, well, we have a branch in the Tops market, but we don't accept cash there. So if you want to pay your mortgage, you got to do it online. So I kind of got pushed out of my circle, and that was something I never thought was possible. So when I talked to her, she goes, "Yeah, it happens all the time. They'll swoop in, they'll buy up 100 loans, mortgages, and this company makes money, so they sell them." So it's just something other kind of like be on the lookout that you could be sold.
Yeah. Mortgages, they sell mortgages on the secondary market, but yes, I think it's in the fine print, or they may talk to you. I don't know if they talk to you, but they say it can be sold.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think sometimes they say it's unlikely, but your mortgage could be sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next episode on Under Contract, Taking Backup.
We have a little connection. I think a lot of people don't know. We have the Pittsburgh connection.
That's funny. Just last week, I think I decided to finally identify as a country girl, a city girl, because I've always considered myself a city girl.
I love the pronunciation of it. Toggenok.
Yes.
Love it.